Have you ever stopped, just for a moment, to wonder what it really means to grow old? Not the way time inadvertently carves wrinkles on your face, but the deep, mysterious journey of walking through your final years with grace and meaning? This video is not simply about the accumulation of age, it is a half-open door, leading you into a world where intense emotions intertwine, where life and death seem to be playing a breathtaking game of tag. Imagine a quiet afternoon, the sunlight fading through the window, and then suddenly a phone ringing, tearing the silence apart. That is the moment Jack Thompson, a 62-year-old man, received the terrible news: his beloved wife passed away after a serious illness. His heart stopped beating, the space around him suddenly turned into a dark abyss, swallowing all the joy that once existed. But what happens when you are thrown into the middle of loneliness and loss, when time seems like a relentless enemy, constantly counting down? This is not a story of surrender. No. Jack, from the ashes of pain, stands up, his hands shaking but his eyes gradually burning with a steadfast fire. His journey is a dramatic symphony. Every low note of sadness blends with the unexpected melodies of hope. You might think that old age is a sentence, a long list of languid days waiting for the end. But wait, what makes Jack, in the middle of long lonely nights, suddenly smile when he sees a late-blooming flower on the porch? It is the moment he realizes that life is not just about existing, but embracing every remaining moment with all his heart and soul. This video takes you into an emotional vortex, where Jack's every step is a powerful blow to the indifference of life. From the eerie silence of the empty house, where the laughter of his children once echoed, now only a distant memory, to the moment he unexpectedly finds light in a new companion, a woman named Laura, who enters his life like a strange wind, blowing away the dust of despair. The story does not stop at growing old, it is a fight for survival, where Jack confronts the darkness within himself, then explodes in determination to live fully, to live with purpose. You will feel your heart beat faster, your breath more rapid, as you witness him go from a man battered by time to a symbol of resilience. Stay until the end, because this is not just Jack's story, it is yours, mine, and anyone who has ever wondered if it is possible to find meaning amid the fragments of life. With every tear shed, every sudden smile, Jack teaches us that aging is not an end, but a dramatic beginning, where grace and purpose intertwine, turning the final days of life into an unforgettable masterpiece. Picture this: Jack Thompson, a rugged 62-year-old man with silver hair and eyes that once sparkled with unshakable optimism, stands alone in the dim glow of his living room, staring at a photograph of his late wife, Sarah. The clock ticks relentlessly, each second a hammer striking the fragile walls of his world. This isn't just a story about a man growing older, it's a roller coaster of raw emotion, a tale of a soul teetering on the edge of despair, only to claw its way back with breathtaking defiance. Jack's life had been a tapestry of joy and heartbreak, woven together with threads of love and loss, but nothing could have prepared him for the gut-wrenching moment that changed everything. One crisp autumn evening, as leaves pirouette outside his window, the phone rang, a shrill, piercing sound that sliced through the silence. It was the hospital. Sarah, his rock, his heart, had slipped away after a brutal illness, leaving Jack stranded in a sea of solitude. The shock hit him like a freight train, his knees buckling as the room spun wildly around him. From that instant, Jack's world unraveled. The joys of raising his children, Adam and Emily, those chaotic, laughter-filled days of scraped knees and bedtime stories, faded into distant echoes as they built their own lives, their visits growing scarce. The house, once alive with the hum of family, became a mausoleum of memories, each corner whispering Sarah's name. Loneliness crept in like a thief, stealing the warmth from his days, and Jack found himself grappling with a question that gnawed at his core. What does it mean to live when everything you've held dear is gone? But here's where the story takes a wild turn. Jack didn't surrender to the darkness. No, amidst the suffocating stillness, a spark flared. One rainy afternoon, as he sat on his worn-out sofa, a knock at the door jolted him from his stupor. It was John, his neighbor, a man whose own eyes mirrored Jack's sorrow. "You're not alone in this," John said, his voice trembling with unspoken grief, and in that moment something shifted. It was as if a dam broke, unleashing a torrent of resolve Jack didn't know he had. His journey became a pulse-pounding odyssey through the highs and lows of aging. The heartaches, the gut-twisting pain of watching his kids drift away, the sleepless nights haunted by Sarah's absence, collided with unexpected triumphs. Enter Laura, a woman who stormed into Jack's life like a hurricane, her laughter a lifeline pulling him from the abyss. Their connection wasn't just a bomb, it was a revelation, A dramatic twist that turned his quiet existence into a vibrant dance of resilience. Together, they faced the chaos of growing older, Jack wrestling with the idea of a nursing home, his heart racing as he weighed independence against companionship. Every decision was a cliffhanger, every step a dare to keep going. Jack's story isn't a gentle stroll through the golden years. It's a high-stakes drama of a man refusing to let time dictate his fate. You'll feel your breath catch as he stares down isolation, your pulse quicken as he finds purpose in the wreckage. This is a man who's tasted life's sweetest joys and its bitterest blows, emerging not just scarred but stronger. His tale grips you, shakes you, and dares you to ask, what would you do when the world falls silent? Jack Thompson didn't just age, he fought, he loved, he lived, and oh how he surprised us all. Aging isn't a quiet drift into the sunset. It's a storm that brews silently, then strikes with a ferocity you never saw coming. Imagine a life where the days stretch endlessly, yet every tick of the clock feels like a countdown to something inevitable, something you can't outrun. Loneliness, loss, and the relentless march of time aren't just abstract ideas. They're visceral, bone-deep challenges that claw at the soul of anyone brave enough to grow old. Picture Jack Thompson, a man who thought he'd mastered life's rhythms, standing in his empty kitchen one gray morning, the silence so thick it chokes him. The phone rings, a jarring, heart-stopping sound, and it's his son Adam, his voice tight with urgency. "Dad, I can't make it today. Work's a mess." Jack's chest tightens, a pang of abandonment slicing through him like a blade. His kids, once his whole world, are slipping away, their lives a whirlwind he can no longer catch. It's not just a missed visit, it's a thunderclap of realization. He's alone, and the quiet is his new jailer. But the drama doesn't end there. Flash back to a night that still haunts him, the hospital call that shattered his universe. Sarah, his wife, his anchor, gone after a battle with illness that left Jack reeling. The memory hits like a sucker punch, her frail hands slipping from his, the beep of machines fading into a deafening void. Loss isn't a gentle goodbye, it's a violent theft, stripping away the laughter, the warmth, the life he'd built. And time? Time is the cruelest player of all, a relentless tide that drags you forward while you're still gasping for air. Jack stares out his window, watching the world blur past. Kids on bikes, couples holding hands, each scene a taunt, a reminder that his own story feels stuck, suspended in a limbo of solitude. The tension builds with every passing day, a tightrope walk between despair and defiance as he wonders, how do you fight an enemy you can't see? Yet here's the twist that'll make your heart race. These aren't just Jack's battles, they're ours. You think aging is a distant shore? Think again. One day you're laughing with friends, invincible. The next you're staring at an empty chair where someone you loved used to sit, the air heavy with their absence. The phone stops ringing, the house grows still, and suddenly you're in the ring with the same foes Jack faces. Loneliness that creeps like a shadow, loss that cuts like a storm, time that mocks your every step. It's a universal script, a high-stakes drama where the stakes are your very spirit. Will you crumble under the weight, or will you rise, fists clenched, ready to wrestle meaning from the chaos? Jack's saga is a pulse-pounding mirror held up to us all. The quiet moments, like when he traces Sarah's name on a dusty photo frame, are laced with a suspense that keeps you on edge. Will he break or will he bend? The challenges of aging aren't a footnote. They're the main act, a gripping showdown that tests every fiber of who you are. You'll feel the chill of isolation, the jolt of unexpected grief, the rush of battling time itself. This isn't just about getting older, it's about staring into the abyss and daring it to blink first. Jack's not alone in this fight, and neither are you. The question hangs, electric and urgent. What will you do when the storm hits? Loss isn't a quiet guest that knocks politely before entering. It's a tidal wave that crashes through your life, leaving wreckage in its wake. For Jack Thompson, that wave hit on a night so ordinary it felt like a cruel setup. The stars glimmered faintly outside, the house hummed with stillness, and then, bam, the phone screamed to life. It was the hospital, and the voice on the other end delivered a blow that stopped time. Sarah, his wife, his heartbeat, had lost her fight with illness. Jack's world imploded. The receiver slipped from his hand, clattering to the floor as he stumbled backward, the room spinning like a carnival ride gone wrong. His chest heaved, his breath ragged as the truth sank in. Sarah was gone and he was left clutching at shadows. This wasn't just grief, it was a high-stakes heist, with loss as the thief stealing everything he'd known in one brutal swipe. But here's where the story grips you tighter. Jack didn't let the darkness win. The days that followed were a battlefield, each sunrise a taunt, each empty chair a dagger. Loneliness coiled around him like a snake, squeezing until he could barely breathe. Yet, in the thick of this storm, a jolt of defiance sparked. One morning as he stood over Sarah's garden, now overgrown and wild, a memory hit him like lightning, her voice, soft but fierce, urging him to keep going. That was the turning point, the moment the script flipped. Jack's journey to cope wasn't a slow crawl, it was a pulse-pounding race against despair. He dug into the dirt, hands trembling, planting new seeds as if he could root himself back to life. The act was small, but the stakes were colossal. Every petal that bloomed was a middle finger to the void. Then came Laura, a twist so unexpected it felt like fate was playing a wild card. She appeared at his door one rainy afternoon, her umbrella dripping, her smile a crack of sunlight in his gloom. "Heard you could use a friend," she said, and just like that the air shifted. Laura wasn't a replacement, she was a lifeline, a co-conspirator in Jack's fight to reclaim meaning. Their talks crackled with energy, laughter cutting through the tension like a knife. Together they unraveled the knots of loss, stitching new connections from the frayed edges of his heart. It was messy, raw, and electric. Every shared coffee a dare to feel again, every late-night chat a step back from the brink. You'll feel your pulse quicken as Jack teeters between memory and possibility, the drama unfolding in every hesitant smile. Coping with loss, Jack learned, isn't about erasing the pain, it's about wrestling it into something you can carry. The tension peaks when he faces the house alone again, Laura off on her own path, and a package arrives. Sarah's old journal, unearthed by Adam. Jack's hands shake as he opens it, her words leaping off the page. "Live Jack even when I'm gone." It's a gut punch, a climactic twist that sends tears streaming down his face, but also lights a fire. He builds a life from the ashes, solitude no longer a prison but a canvas. The stakes? His very soul. This isn't a gentle lesson, it's a high-wire act, a story that grabs you by the throat and demands you feel the weight, the thrill, the triumph. Jack's not just surviving loss, he's rewriting it, and you're right there breathless watching him soar. Jack Thompson's life had become a gray haze, a relentless fog of solitude that clung to him after Sarah's death. The house creaked with emptiness, each echo a reminder of the love he'd lost. Then, like a thunderbolt splitting a dead sky, Laura crashed into his world. It wasn't a gentle meeting, no soft knock or polite hello. Picture this, a stormy afternoon, rain hammering the roof, and a drenched figure burst through Jack's front door, her umbrella snapping shut with a crack. "You're Jack, right?" "I'm Laura," she announced, her voice cutting through the gloom like a siren. Jack froze, coffee mug midair, his heart jolting as if it had been shocked awake. Who was this woman, storming in uninvited, her eyes blazing with a fire he hadn't seen in years? The tension was immediate, electric. Here was chaos incarnate, and Jack, still reeling from loss, wasn't ready for the ride. Laura wasn't just a visitor, she was a force, a whirlwind of resilience that tore through Jack's carefully built walls. She'd heard of his struggles, small-town whispers travel fast, and decided he needed saving whether he liked it or not. Their first clash was a scene straight out of a drama. Jack, gruff and guarded, snapped, "I don't need pity." Laura shot back, "Good, 'cause I'm not here to cry over you, I'm here to drag you back to life." The air crackled, the stakes laid bare in an instant. What followed was a roller coaster of raw emotion. Days of terse silences broken by sudden, explosive laughter, nights where her stories of adventure lit up his shadowed mind. She wasn't replacing Sarah, she was rewriting Jack's script, a plot twist so bold it left him breathless. Every moment with her was a gamble. Would he retreat into his shell, or dare to step into her light? The drama peaked one evening when Laura dragged him to the park, rain-soaked and defiant. "Dance with me," she demanded, twirling in the downpour. Jack hesitated, the weight of years pinning him in place, until a memory of Sarah's laughter flashed, unbidden, urging him on. He grabbed her hand and they spun, a reckless, heart-pounding rebellion against time itself. It was more than a dance, it was a lifeline, a surge of strength that yanked him from despair's jaws. Laura's presence was a high-stakes game, her optimism a blade slicing through his cynicism, her resilience a mirror showing him he wasn't broken, just bent. Together, they navigated aging's brutal maze, her voice a steady drumbeat against his fears. You'll feel your pulse race as Jack teeters on the edge, torn between clinging to the past and embracing this wild, unexpected now. But here's the gut-wrenching twist. Laura's stay wasn't forever. One quiet morning her phone buzzed, a call from her son pleading for her return. Jack's stomach dropped as she whispered, "I've gotten used to you," her eyes glistening with conflict. The room spun, the air thick with unspoken pleas, "Stay, don't go." Yet, with a trembling smile, he let her go, the door slamming shut like a gunshot. The silence that followed was deafening, a cliffhanger that left him reeling. Laura had been his compass through the storm of aging, her strength his anchor. She didn't just help him cope, she ignited a fire that refused to die. This isn't a soft tale of companionship, it's a gripping saga of two souls colliding, sparking and parting, leaving Jack forever changed, and you breathless on the edge of your seat. Aging doesn't just bring wrinkles and gray hair, it drags you into a battlefield of choices so brutal they could crack your soul wide open. For Jack Thompson, the war arrived not with a whisper, but with a roar. One crisp evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting his quiet suburb in shades of fire, the phone shattered the stillness. It was Adam, his son, his voice a jagged edge of panic. "Dad, the pipes burst, water's everywhere. You can't stay there tonight." Jack's heart lurched, his breath catching as he stumbled to the basement, only to find a flood swallowing decades of memories, Sarah's old letters, Emily's childhood drawings, all drowning in chaos. The house, his fortress, had betrayed him. In that gut-wrenching moment, a decision loomed like a guillotine. Stay and fight the ruin or surrender to the unthinkable, moving to a nursing home. This wasn't a choice scribbled on a notepad, it was a high-stakes showdown, a clash between independence and survival. Jack paced the soggy floor, water sloshing at his ankles, his mind racing like a trapped animal. The walls seemed to close in, whispering taunts of frailty, while outside, the world spun on, indifferent. Then came the twist that hit like a sucker punch. His neighbor John dropped by, soaked and grim, and muttered, "My place flooded last year. I waited too long, lost everything." The words landed like a grenade, blasting Jack's resolve to bits. Suddenly, the nursing home wasn't just an option, it was a ticking clock, a dare to act before life stripped him bare. Every heartbeat thrummed with tension. Cling to the past and risk collapse, or leap into the unknown with nothing but blind faith. The drama escalated when Adam and Emily stormed in, their faces etched with worry, their voices a chorus of pleas. "Dad, you're not safe here," Emily cried, her eyes darting to the wreckage. Jack's chest tightened. His kids, his anchors, were begging him to let go, but the house held Sarah's ghost in every corner. The air crackled with emotion, a standoff between love and logic. Then a jolt. Adam pulled out a brochure, glossy and cold, Sunny Hills Nursing Home. "It's got gardens, people your age, it's not a prison," he urged, his voice breaking. Jack's hands shook as he took it, the paper feeling like a death sentence and a lifeline all at once. The decision teetered on a knife's edge: stay and drown in isolation, or trade his kingdom for a stranger's promise of peace. Jack's resolve snapped one stormy night, thunder rattling the windows as he sat alone, the flood stench thick in the air. A memory flashed, Sarah's voice, soft but firm, "Live, Jack, even when it's hard." It was a lightning strike to his core, a call to arms. He dialed Adam, voice trembling but steady, "I'll go." The move was a whirlwind, packing decades into boxes, the house's creaks a mournful goodbye. At Sunny Hills, he stepped into a new world, the scent of flowers clashing with his dread. Yet, as Mr. Robinson, a resident with a warm grin, offered a tour, the tension eased, a flicker of hope piercing the dark. This wasn't surrender, it was a gamble, a bold rewrite of his story. Jack faced the toughest call of his life with a heart pounding, a spirit tested, and a courage that left you breathless. Seniors don't just decide, they wage war with fate, and Jack? He emerged scarred but victorious. Loneliness doesn't creep in softly, it slams into you like a freight train, leaving you gasping in the wreckage. For Jack Thompson, that collision came on a night so still it felt like the world had abandoned him. The clock struck midnight, its chime a hollow echo in his empty house, when the phone rang, a sound so sharp it sliced through the silence like a blade. It was Emily, his daughter, her voice a frantic whisper, "Dad, I can't come tomorrow, Noah's sick." Jack's heart sank, a cold wave crashing over him as he hung up, the line dead, the room swallowing him whole. Sarah was gone, his kids were slipping away, and the walls that once rang with laughter now mocked him with their stillness. This wasn't just solitude, it was a gut-wrenching ambush, a spotlight on a truth he'd dodged. He was alone and the weight of it was crushing. The days that followed were a descent into a thriller of the soul. Jack sat on his sagging couch, the TV flickering like a ghost, when a shadow moved outside, a stray cat scratching at the door. He let it in, its purr a fragile lifeline, but then, bam, it bolted, leaving him staring at an open door and a void that roared back. Loneliness wasn't a quiet companion, it was a predator stalking him through every empty hour. The tension coiled tighter with each missed call from Adam, each hurried, "I'm fine," he forced out to mask the ache. Then came the jolt that flipped the script. A knock, loud and insistent. It was John, his neighbor, eyes sunken with the same hollow stare. "I can't stand the quiet anymore," John rasped, collapsing into a chair. In that raw, unscripted moment, Jack saw his own reflection. A man teetering on the edge, yet not broken. What unfolds is a pulse-pounding lesson carved from isolation's claws. Jack didn't just sit there, he fought. One dawn, as fog clung to the windows like a shroud, he grabbed his coat and marched to the park, legs trembling but resolve blazing. The air bit his lungs, each step a defiance against the silence that had caged him. Then a twist. At the community center, a chessboard beckoned and strangers, old souls like him, drew him in with gruff nods and sly grins. The room buzzed, a heartbeat against the stillness, and Jack's hands shook as he moved a pawn, the stakes higher than any game, connection or collapse. Loneliness had him in a chokehold, but here, amid clinking mugs and raspy laughs, he wrestled it back breath by breath. The climax hits when Jack lies awake one night, the cat's absence a fresh wound, and a memory strikes like lightning. Sarah's voice, fierce and clear, "You're enough, Jack." It's a gut punch, a revelation that rewrites the script. Loneliness isn't a sentence, it's a teacher, brutal but wise. He learns to fill the quiet with his own rhythm. Mornings at the park, evenings trading stories with new allies. The tension peaks as he stares down the void, daring it to blink first and wins, not with noise, but with a quiet strength he never knew he had. This isn't a soft tale of solitude, it's a high-stakes saga of a man cornered by silence, only to emerge scarred, fierce and alive. Jack's lesson grips you, shakes you and dares you to ask, what would you forge from your own lonely dark? Independence isn't a gift handed to you as you age, it's a fortress you build, brick by trembling brick, against a world that threatens to swallow you whole. For Jack Thompson, that truth slammed into him like a runaway train one frigid night. He was hunched over a lukewarm coffee, the house a tomb of silence since Sarah's death, when the lights flickered, then died. A power outage, sudden and merciless, plunged him into darkness so thick it felt alive. Panic clawed at his chest as he fumbled for a flashlight, only to trip over a chair, crashing to the floor with a bone-jarring thud. Pain shot through his knee, but the real blow was the realization. No one was coming. Adam and Emily were miles away, wrapped in their own lives, and Jack was alone, sprawled in the shadows of a life he'd once controlled. This wasn't just a blackout, it was a wake-up call, sharp and brutal, screaming that he had to stand on his own. The days after were a high-wire act, each moment teetering between surrender and defiance. Jack's hands shook as he taped up his knee, the sting a taunt from his own frailty. The phone sat silent, no rescue calls, no cavalry, and the tension coiled tighter with every creak of the empty house. Then came the jolt that flipped the script. A knock, faint but insistent. It was John, his neighbor, winded and wild-eyed, clutching a lantern. "Lost power too," he gasped. "Figured we're in this together." Jack's heart raced. Here was a mirror, a man as battered by time as he was, yet still fighting. John's words hit like a thunderclap. "Kids can't always save us, Jack. We've got to save ourselves." It was a gut punch, a dare to reclaim the reins of a life slipping through his fingers. What follows is a pulse-pounding odyssey of self-reliance. Jack didn't just patch up the house, he waged war on dependence. One dawn, as frost glittered like a challenge, he hauled himself to the garage, tools clanking, and fixed the breaker box. Sweat beading, hands raw, victory surging. The stakes skyrocketed when he joined the community center, not as a spectator but a player. Chess matches turned into battlegrounds, his mind sharp against the haze of age. Every move was a gamble, retreat to the couch's numbing embrace or claw his way back to life. The air crackled with tension as he pushed his body, park walks that left him breathless, evenings lifting weights he hadn't touched in years. Independence wasn't comfort, it was a fight, bloody and breathless, against the pull of isolation. The climax hits one stormy night, rain lashing the windows when Jack collapses mid-walk, chest heaving, rain soaking him to the bone. A memory flashes, Sarah's voice, fierce, "You're stronger than you know." It's a lightning strike to his soul, yanking him upright as thunder roars. He staggers home, soaked but unbroken, and stares into the mirror, a warrior, not a relic. Independence, he learns, isn't about rejecting help. It's about owning your fight, standing tall when the world bets you'll fall. The house hums again, not with others' voices but his own rhythm, active, alive, defiant. This isn't a gentle lesson, It's a high-stakes saga of a man cornered by time, only to rise with a roar that shakes the silence. Jack's independence grips you, dares you. When the lights go out, will you flicker, or burn? Jack Thompson's days had blurred into a monochrome haze, a prison of solitude since Sarah's death, when a spark flared out of nowhere, like a match struck in a pitch-black cave. It was a sweltering afternoon, the air thick with summer's breath, when a crash jolted him from his armchair. Glass shattered outside, a bottle skittering across his porch, and there she was, Margaret, a whirlwind of silver hair and blazing eyes, cursing under her breath as she chased a runaway grocery bag. "Damn wind," she barked, then froze, catching Jack's stunned gaze through the window. "You gonna help or just gawk?" she snapped, her voice a whip crack that snapped him awake. Heart pounding, he stumbled out, hands trembling as he grabbed the bag, and in that chaotic instant, a friendship ignited. A collision so unexpected it felt like fate had thrown a curveball straight at his chest. Margaret wasn't a soft bomb. She was a tempest, a jolt of life that ripped through Jack's numbness. She stormed into his world uninvited, her laughter a thunderclap against his silence, her stories of solo road trips and late-night stargazing a dare to wake up. Their bond wasn't gentle. It was a high-stakes dance, teetering on the edge of clash and connection. One evening as crickets sang, she dragged him to the backyard, a picnic basket swinging from her arm. "Sit," she ordered, pouring wine with a smirk. Jack bristled. "I don't need bossing around." But her grin disarmed him, and suddenly they were laughing, the air electric with a camaraderie he hadn't felt in years. Every moment with her was a gamble. Retreat to his shell or leap into her orbit, where loneliness had no foothold. You'll feel the tension coil as Jack wrestles with guilt, Sarah's memory a ghost at the table, yet Margaret's fire pulls him forward, relentless and alive. The drama peaks one stormy night, rain hammering the roof, when Jack falls ill, a fever that hits like a freight train, sweat soaking his shirt. Margaret bursts in, a blur of soaked clothes and fierce determination, her hands cool against his burning skin as she thrusts medicine at him. "You're not dying on my watch," she growls, and the room spins with her intensity. Adam arrives, wide-eyed, finding her in command, and Jack rasps, "She's got me," a faint smile breaking through the haze. It's a heart-stopping tableau, life hanging by a thread, Margaret his anchor in the chaos. Their friendship isn't just companionship, it's a lifeline, a pulse-pounding pact against the dark. Then comes the gut-wrenching twist. A phone call shatters their rhythm. Margaret's son, voice trembling through the line, begs her to move back for his wedding. Jack's stomach drops as she whispers, "I don't want to leave you," her eyes glistening with a storm of her own. The air thickens, a silent plea hanging between them. "Stay, please," but he chokes out, "Go, you're a mom first," his voice cracking as he forces a smile. She boards the bus, rain streaking the windows like tears, and Jack stands frozen, the silence roaring back as her absence carves a hole in his chest. Margaret wasn't just a friend, she was his spark, his co-conspirator in defying age's grip. This isn't a soft tale of companionship, it's a roller coaster of joy, fevered loyalty, and wrenching loss, leaving Jack, and you, reeling, breathless, forever changed by her wild, fleeting light. Jack Thompson's world had shrunk to a cage of silence, the echoes of Sarah's laughter long faded, when a bombshell dropped like a thunderclap in the dead of night. He was dozing on the couch, a half-empty coffee mug teetering on the armrest, when the floor trembled, a pipe burst, water gushing through the basement like a vengeful river. Jack bolted upright, heart hammering as he raced downstairs, only to slip and crash into a wall of icy floodwater. Soaked and gasping, he clawed at soggy boxes, Sarah's letters, his kids' old toys, everything drowning in chaos. The house, his last bastion, was crumbling, and in that frantic moment, a realization hit like a gunshot. He couldn't stay. The nursing home, once a distant specter, loomed now as a lifeline, or a guillotine, and Jack's pulse raced as he faced the toughest call of his life. The tension skyrocketed as Adam and Emily stormed in, drenched and wild-eyed, their voices a desperate chorus. "Dad, this place is falling apart, you're not safe." Emily cried, her hands trembling as she clutched the ruined remnants of her childhood. Jack's chest tightened, the air thick with unspoken fears. Leave the home where Sarah's spirit lingered, or risk being swallowed by its decay. Then came the jolt. Adam slammed a nursing home pamphlet on the table, Sunny Hills, its glossy promise of gardens and companionship a taunt against his stubborn pride. "It's not giving up, Dad, it's surviving," Adam pleaded, his voice breaking. Jack's hands shook as he traced the words, the stakes glaring, cling to a sinking ship or leap into an abyss he couldn't control. Every breath was a countdown, the decision a tightrope over a chasm. The drama crested one stormy dusk, lightning slashing the sky as Jack sat amidst the wreckage, water lapping at his boots. A memory flashed, Sarah's whisper, fierce and clear, "Live, Jack, no matter what." It was a lightning strike to his soul, shattering his resistance. He dialed Adam, voice raw, "Get me out of here." The move was a whirlwind, packing decades into cardboard, the house groaning its farewell as rain lashed the windows. At Sunny Hills, he stepped into a new world, the scent of antiseptic clashing with his dread, his heart pounding like a war drum. Then a twist. Mr. Robinson, a grizzled resident with a warm grin, ambushed him with a handshake. "Welcome to the fight," he chuckled, guiding Jack through flower-lined halls. The tension eased, a flicker of hope piercing the dark. Was this surrender or a daring new chapter? Jack's first night was a roller coaster. Sleep eluded him as shadows danced on the ceiling, the unfamiliar bed a battleground of doubt. But dawn brought a shock. Laughter drifted from the common room, chessboards clattered, and faces, worn but alive, nodded in welcome. The stakes shifted. He wasn't just surviving, he was reclaiming ground. The nursing home wasn't a cold end, it was a pulse, a rhythm of connection he'd thought lost. Adam and Emily visited, their relief palpable, but Jack's quiet strength stunned them. "I'm not a burden, I'm building something here. This isn't a soft slide into retirement. It's a high-stakes saga of a man cornered by ruin, only to rise with a roar that defies the fall." Jack's move grips you, shakes you, and dares you to ask, when your world floods, will you sink, or swim into the storm? Jack Thompson had finally carved a fragile piece from the chaos of aging, his days at Sunny Hills nursing home a quiet rhythm of chess and chatter, when fate dealt a blow so vicious it shattered his world. It was a lazy afternoon, sunlight spilling through the windows, when the phone jolted him from a nap, a shrill scream against the stillness. Adam's voice crackled through, raw and trembling. "Dad, it's Mrs. Robinson, she's been in a car accident." "It's bad." Jack's heart stopped, the room tilting as if the floor had vanished. Mrs. Robinson, his rock, his confidant, the woman who'd turned his solitude into something bearable, was fighting for her life. He dropped the phone, a gasp clawing from his throat, and in that gut-wrenching instant, loss bared its teeth again, a predator he thought he'd outrun. The drive to the hospital was a fevered blur, tires screeching as Jack gripped the wheel, his pulse a war drum. He burst into the emergency room where Adam and Emily waited, their faces pale masks of dread. "She's in surgery," Emily whispered, her voice breaking, and Jack staggered, the air thick with a terror he couldn't name. Mrs. Robinson wasn't just a friend, she was his tether, her warm smile a lighthouse in his storm. The wait stretched into an eternity, each tick of the clock a taunt, until the doctor emerged, his face grim as a death knell. "Prepare for the worst," he said, and Jack's knees buckled, a cry ripping from his chest, raw, primal, a sound that echoed the shattering of his soul. This wasn't a gentle goodbye, it was a high-stakes robbery, stripping away his last anchor in a single brutal swipe. The tension peaked when a nurse wheeled her out, pale and still, a shadow of the vibrant woman who'd laughed with him just days before. Jack lunged forward, seizing her cold hand, his voice a desperate plea. "Don't leave me, please, you promised we'd face this together." Her eyes fluttered, a fleeting spark of life, and for one heart-stopping moment hope flared. Could she hear him? But then a tear slid down her cheek, her grip slackened, and with a faint, shuddering breath she was gone. Jack crumpled beside her, sobs tearing through him as the room spun, a vortex of grief swallowing him whole. Adam and Emily stood helpless, their hands on his shoulders a faint tether to reality, but the loss was a blade, carving a void no comfort could fill. The stakes? His very will to keep going. What follows is a haunting aftermath, a man unmoored in a world suddenly colder. Back at Sunny Hills, the chessboard sat untouched, her empty chair a silent scream. Jack wandered the halls like a ghost, the memory of her whisper, "Live well, Mr. Thompson," a dagger and a lifeline twisted together. The drama crests one sleepless night as he clutches her last gift, a worn scarf, and a realization crashes in. She'd given him strength to lose her. This isn't a soft tale of mourning, it's a pulse-pounding plunge into despair and defiance, a saga of a bond severed too soon. Jack's loss grips you, shakes you, her death a thunderclap that echoes in every quiet corner. Mrs. Robinson wasn't just taken, she left a mark, a fierce, fragile light that dares Jack, and you, to stumble through the dark and rise breathless on the other side. Relationships aren't just threads in life's fabric, they're lifelines forged in fire, that haul you from the brink when the world caves in. For Jack Thompson, that truth erupted like a volcano on a day he thought would be ordinary. He was shuffling through Sunny Hill's garden, the scent of roses a faint comfort, when a shout pierced the air. Mr. Robinson, his gruff chest buddy, collapsed mid-step, clutching his chest. Jack's heart lurched, adrenaline surging as he sprinted over, knees slamming into the dirt beside the old man. "Hang on," he yelled, hands trembling as he fumbled for his phone, dialing for help. The ambulance screeched in, paramedics swarming, and Jack stood frozen, breath ragged as they whisked Robinson away. In that heart-stopping chaos, a jolt hit. These bonds, fragile as they seemed, were his armor, a sudden, electrifying truth that rewrote his lonely script. The tension didn't relent, it coiled tighter. Hours later, pacing the hospital's sterile halls, Jack's mind raced. Robinson wasn't just a friend, he was a pillar, a mirror of Jack's own fight against time. The doctor emerged, face taut, and muttered, "He's stable, but it was close." Relief crashed over Jack like a wave, but beneath it simmered a raw, unshakable certainty. Relationships weren't luxuries, they were survival. Flashbacks struck like lightning. Sarah's steady hand in his, Laura's fierce laughter, Margaret's quiet strength, each a lifeline that had yanked him from despair's jaws. The stakes glared. Lose these ties and he'd drown in the silence that once nearly broke him. This wasn't a soft epiphany, it was a high-stakes revelation, a dare to cling to every soul who'd crossed his path. The drama peaked one stormy night, rain battering the nursing home, when Jack sat by Robinson's bedside, the old man's breath shallow but steady. A memory roared in, Mrs. Robinson's dying whisper, "Live well," her hand slipping from his, and Jack's chest tightened, a sob clawing free. He gripped Robinson's wrist, pulse thumping under his fingers, and vowed, no more letting go. These connections, fleeting or fierce, were his fuel, a fire against the dark. The air crackled with urgency as he replayed every bond. John's gruff wisdom, Emily's worried calls, even the stray cat's fleeting purr. Each had stitched him back together, a tapestry of strength he hadn't seen until now. You'll feel the tension spike as Jack teeters on the edge, grief a shadow, hope a blade, knowing one truth, without them he'd be ash. Then came the twist that shook him to his core. Robinson woke, rasping, "You saved me, Thompson," his grin weak but defiant. Jack's eyes burned. Here was proof, living and breathing, that relationships weren't just comfort. They were power, a pulse that defied death itself. Back at Sunny Hills, he dove into the fray. Chess games turned fierce, conversations electric. Each moment a gamble to deepen the ties that held him up. This isn't a gentle ode to friendship. It's a pulse-pounding saga of a man ambushed by loss, only to find salvation in the messy, beautiful chaos of others. Jack's lesson grips you, shakes you. These bonds, grand or small, are the heartbeat of meaning, a lifeline in a storm. When the rain clears, he stands taller, not because he's unbroken, but because he's woven into something bigger, a web of souls that dares the void to try again. What's your lifeline when the thunder rolls? Change and loss don't tiptoe into your life. They barrel in like a wrecking ball, smashing everything you thought was permanent. For Jack Thompson, that collision came on a day so calm it felt like a trap. He was pruning Sarah's old rosebush at Sunny Hills, the thorns a familiar sting, when a courier thrust a package into his hands, a battered box, no return address. Heart thudding, he tore it open, and there it was. Sarah's journal, lost for years, its pages yellowed and alive with her handwriting. "Jack, let go when it's time," she'd scrawled, a line that hit like a gunshot. The garden spun, his breath hitching as the past roared back. Her voice, her smile, her death, all crashing into him with a force that buckled his knees. This wasn't a memory, it was a high-stakes ambush, a demand to face what he'd buried. Nothing lasts forever. The tension spiraled as Jack clutched the journal, each word a dagger and a lifeline twisted together. He'd fought change like a boxer in the ring. Sarah's passing, Margaret's departure, the move to the nursing home, each blow dodged with grit and denial. But now, alone with her ghost, the stakes glared. Cling to a fading yesterday, or wrestle the chaos of today into something he could bear. Then came the jolt, a scream from the hall. It was Robinson, wild-eyed, shouting, "They're cutting down the oak tree." Jack stumbled out, journal in hand, to find the massive tree. His spot with Mrs. Robinson, under the saw's teeth. The whine of blades echoed his pulse, a gut-wrenching symbol of loss he couldn't stop. He yelled, "Wait!" But the trunk cracked, crashing down with a thunderous roar, and Jack's chest caved, another piece of his world gone, unstoppable. What unfolds is a pulse-pounding reckoning. That night, rain lashed the windows as Jack sat by the stump, soaked and trembling, Sarah's journal open on his lap. Lightning flashed, illuminating her words, "Things fade but we keep going," and a sob tore from him, raw and defiant. The drama crested as he traced the Oak's rings, each one a year he'd loved, lost, fought. Acceptance wasn't surrender, it was a war, a gritty dance with a foe that never quits. He'd raged against Sarah's death, Margaret's goodbye, Mrs. Robinson's silence, each a wound he'd stitched with stubbornness. But here in the storm's howl, a twist struck. Letting go wasn't weakness, it was power, a dare to live beyond the wreckage. You'll feel the tension coil as Jack teeters. Grief a tide, resolve a rock. Knowing change isn't a choice, it's a thief you learn to outlast. The climax hits when dawn breaks, the rain a whisper, and Jack plants a sapling where the oak fell. His hands shake, dirt under his nails, but his eyes burn with something new, peace, hard-won and fierce. Loss had stripped him bare, but Sarah's words, the trees fall, the bonds he built, they taught him to bend, not break. This isn't a soft tale of moving on. It's a high-stakes saga of a man blindsided by time, only to rise with a roar that defies its grip. Jack's acceptance grips you, shakes you. It's not about erasing pain but forging meaning from its ashes. The sapling stands, fragile but alive, a testament to a truth that cuts deep. Everything changes, everyone leaves, and still you grow. When your own storm hits, what will you plant in the ruin? Aging isn't a slow fade into the background, it's a wildfire that reshapes you, burning away illusions and forging something fiercer in the ashes. For Jack Thompson, that blaze ignited on a day he never saw coming. He was shuffling through Sunny Hill's common room, the clatter of chess pieces a familiar hum, when a sharp cry sliced the air. Robinson, his grizzled confidant, doubled over, gasping, "I can't see." Jack's heart slammed against his ribs as he lunged forward, catching the old man just as he crumpled. Panic flared, a siren in his skull as he shouted for help, staff swarming in a blur. The diagnosis hit like a thunderclap. Robinson's sight was failing, fast. Jack stood there, breathless, as a mirror cracked open. Age wasn't just creeping, it was charging, and he was next in its crosshairs. The tension coiled tighter in the days that followed, a high-stakes gauntlet of doubt and discovery. Jack sat by Robinson's bedside, the old man's hand trembling in his, and a memory struck. Sarah's voice, fierce, "You're stronger than time." It was a gut punch, a call to arms he couldn't ignore. He'd weathered loss, loneliness, the nursing home's sterile halls, but this was a reckoning, a dare to grow through the chaos age hurled at him. Then came the jolt. A package arrived, unannounced, a worn photo album from Emily, stuffed with snapshots of Jack through the years. He flipped it open, hands shaking, and there he was. Young and brash, then weathered and wise, each frame a shockwave of transformation he'd never clocked. The stakes glared, stagnate in the past or rise with the scars he'd earned. What unfolds is a pulse-pounding odyssey of becoming. Jack didn't just sit there, he dove into the fray. One dawn, as mist clung to the windows, he grabbed a cane, not his but Robinson's, and marched to the garden, legs wobbly but spirit ablaze. He planted bulbs, dirt streaking his face, each shove of the trowel a defiance against frailty. The drama crested when Robinson, half-blind but grinning, joined him, rasping, "You're a stubborn bastard, Thompson." They laughed, raw and wild, the air electric with a bond that age couldn't snuff. Jack's body ached, his knees groaned, but his soul roared, every wrinkle a medal, every gray hair a badge of battles won. You'll feel the tension spike as he wrestles time itself, strength blooming where weakness once ruled. The climax hits one quiet night, stars piercing the dark, when Jack catches his reflection in a window, not the man he was but the man he's become. A tear slips free not from sorrow but awe. The years, the struggles, the joys had sculpted him into something more, wiser, tougher, alive. A twist unfurls, Emily calls, voice trembling, "Dad, you sound different." He chuckles low and sure, "I am." Age hadn't just taken, it had given, a brutal teacher that stripped him bare only to rebuild him stronger. This isn't a soft tale of growing old, it's a high-stakes saga of a man ambushed by time, only to emerge with a fire that defies its grip. Jack's growth grips you, shakes you. It's not about dodging the years, but wielding them like a blade, cutting through life's haze to reveal a beauty he never dreamed possible. The bulbs sprout, fragile but fierce, a mirror to his soul. When age comes for you, will you shrink, or soar? Self-reliance isn't a quiet virtue you stumble into. It's a steel backbone forged in the crucible of life's hardest blows, and for Jack Thompson, that forge roared to life with a vengeance. It was a bitter winter night at Sunny Hills, the wind howling like a beast outside, when the power snapped off, plunging the nursing home into an icy black abyss. Jack jolted awake, breath fogging in the frigid air, and reached for his phone. Dead. A chill deeper than the cold gripped him as shouts echoed down the hall. Help! Someone's hurt. He staggered out, flashlight beams slicing the dark, only to find Robinson sprawled near the stairs, groaning, blood trickling from a gash. The staff were nowhere, the phones silent, and in that heart-stopping moment, a truth crashed in like a thunderbolt. No one was coming. Jack had to be his own savior now. The tension surged, a high-stakes race against chaos. Jack's pulse hammered as he tore off his scarf, pressing it to Robinson's wound, hands shaking but steady. "Hold on, damn it," he growled, dragging the old man to safety, every step a gamble, collapse under the weight or rise to the fight. The air crackled with urgency, his breath ragged as he pounded on doors, rousing groggy residents to huddle for warmth. Then came the jolt. A memory flared, Sarah's voice, fierce and clear. "You've got this, Jack." A lightning strike to his core that lit a fire no darkness could snuff. He wasn't just saving Robinson. He was clawing back control from a world that kept trying to break him. The stakes? His very survival, a test of grit when the cavalry stayed home. What follows is a pulse-pounding revelation of inner strength. Dawn broke, power flickering back, and Jack stood over Robinson, patched up, alive, chest heaving with a pride he hadn't felt in years. The drama didn't fade, it sharpened. One stormy dusk, alone in his room, a shelf collapsed, books and trinkets crashing down, a mirror of his old life's fragility. He didn't call Adam or Emily, his hands, weathered but sure, rebuilt it, nail by nail, sweat beating as thunder roared outside. Each hammer strike was a defiance, a shout into the void. "I'm enough." The tension peaked as he stared down the wreckage of his past. Sarah's death, Margaret's goodbye, Mrs. Robinson's loss, and a twist unfurled. Relying on himself wasn't loneliness, it was power, a quiet roar that drowned out the world's pity. The climax hits one crisp morning, frost glittering like a challenge, when Jack walks the garden alone, cane tapping a rhythm only he hears. Emily calls, voice soft with worry, "Dad, you sure you're okay?" He laughs, low and fierce, "Never better." The line hums with her silence, stunned. He didn't need her to save him. He'd saved himself. This isn't a gentle tale of standing solo. It's a high-stakes saga of a man cornered by fate, only to rise with a strength that shakes the earth. Jack's self-reliance grips you, dares you. When the lights die, when the shelf falls, when the phone stays quiet, he's his own rock, unyielding. The garden blooms, tended by his hands alone, a testament to a truth that cuts deep. Others can lift you, but you're the one who stands when the storm clears. When your own dark hits, will you wait, or wield the fire within? Life throws curveballs, loneliness, loss, the relentless tick of time, but you can wield them like tools, not weapons, to build a stronger you. Start by embracing solitude as a teacher, not a foe. Set aside an hour each week, phone off, distractions gone, to sit with your thoughts, journal in hand. Jack learned to fill silence with purpose. You can too. Reflect on what drives you, not what drags you down. Next, lean into relationships, but don't lean on them. Call a friend today, not for rescue but connection. Share a laugh, a story like Jack did with Laura or Margaret. These bonds are lifelines, not crutches. Third, act before chaos strikes. Jack's flooded basement taught him preparation beats panic. Check your smoke detectors, stash an emergency kit, take a walk to keep your body sharp. Finally, trust yourself when the lights go out. Next time you're stuck, car breaks down, deadline looms, pause, breathe, tackle it step by step. Jack rebuilt shelves, saved Robinson, all solo. You've got that grit too. Life's storms don't wait. Start small, stand tall, and turn today's lessons into tomorrow's strength. Thank you for watching the whole video. If you don't like this content, please comment 0. If you find the video useful, please comment 1. Subscribe to the channel and remember to turn on the notification bell to see other useful health content. See you in the next video.